The moment the heavy brass doors of the Met Gala swung open, the music didn't just stop, it died. 5 years ago, Vivien Sterling was a ghost, a starter wife, discarded by her billionaire husband like last season's trash. But tonight, the woman at the top of the stairs wasn't a ghost. She was a natural disaster in a red dress. She didn't just look expensive, she looked lethal. And she wasn't alone. Gripping her hand was a 4-year-old boy with eyes that mirrored the man who destroyed her life. Eyes that belonged to Arthur Sterling. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Whispers. Instantly. Arthur thought he had buried her. He thought he had erased her. He was wrong. Vivien didn't come back for alimony. She came back for an execution. But to understand the sweetness of this revenge, you have to taste the bitterness of the ruin. You have to go back to the rainy Tuesday when Vivien died, so the queen could be born. It started with the rain, not a romantic drizzle, a hard, cold November downpour lashing the windows of the Pierre Hotel penthouse. Inside, 70 stories above Fifth Avenue, the air smelled of expensive sandalwood and betrayal. Vivien stood by the kitchen island, gripping the marble until her knuckles turned white. She wore an oversized beige cardigan, the uniform of a woman who spent all day baking a surprise birthday cake. That cake sat on the counter, untouched, pathetic. Arthur Sterling stood by the window, fixing his cufflinks, refusing to even look at her. "It's about optics, Vivien." His voice was terrifyingly calm, the same voice he used to fire employees. "Sterling Tech is going public. The board expects a certain image, and you're just comfortable." He finally turned. His hazel eyes, once warm, now cold steel. "Look at you. You're a librarian from Ohio. You don't fit in this world. Frankly, I've outgrown you." Outgrown. The word sucked the oxygen out of the room. "Outgrown?" Vivien whispered. Her voice trembled. "Arthur, I worked 2 jobs so you could buy your first server. I ironed your shirts for pitch meetings when we couldn't afford dry cleaning. I held you when you panicked." Arthur didn't flinch. He walked to his desk and tossed a blue folder onto the coffee table. Thud. "You were compensated." His tone was ice. "The prenup is ironclad, but I'm being generous. There's a check for $2 million inside. Take it. Sign the NDA. Leave." $2 million. To most, a fortune. To Arthur Sterling, trash money. "Shut up and go away. Money. I don't want your money," Vivien cried. Arthur checked his Rolex. "Don't be dramatic. Serena is meeting me at the St. Regis in 20 minutes. I need you gone before I get back." Serena. The name hit Vivien like a physical slap. Serena Vance. 23. Gold hair, shipping heiress, the kind of woman born knowing how to eat caviar. "She's 23, Arthur." Vivien's voice shook. "She loves your money, not you. She understands this world." Arthur shot back. "She's an asset. You are a liability." He paused, hand on the handle. "Do yourself a favor, Viv. Don't fight this. You were a good starter wife. But the game has changed. I'm in the big leagues now." The door clicked and shut. Silence. Deafening. Crushing. Silence. Vivien stood alone in the luxury prison. Starter wife. A practice run. She walked to the table, legs heavy as lead. She opened the folder. Divorce papers, ready. The check, clipped to the front. Then, a sharp cramp, twisted in her stomach. Her hand flew to her abdomen. Arthur didn't know. The plastic stick with 2 pink lines was still in her pocket. She was 8 weeks pregnant. Panic set in. If she told him now, he wouldn't love her. He would trap her. He was obsessed with his legacy. He would take the baby, push her out, and let Serena raise her child. Vivien looked at the wedding photo on the mantle. Arthur had turned it, face down. No. She grabbed the pen. Her hand shook, but her mind was clear. To save her child, she had to lose her husband. She signed the paper. Vivien Cole. She left Sterling off. "A starter wife," she whispered to the empty room. She took the check. Not for her, for the baby. She buttoned her cardigan over her belly, stepped into the elevator, and walked past the doorman who wouldn't meet her eyes. She stepped out into the freezing rain of Fifth Avenue. Arthur was likely laughing with Serena right now, sipping scotch, thinking he had won, thinking he had cut off the dead weight. He had no idea. The woman walking into the dark wasn't just an ex-wife. She was a walking time bomb, carrying the heir to his empire. Vivien touched her stomach as the rain soaked her face. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "But first, we have to disappear." She vanished into the city shadows. Arthur Sterling thought he was safe. He wouldn't see the knife coming for 5 whole years. We left Vivien walking into the dark, pregnant and alone, whispering a promise to her unborn child. She said they would disappear, and she was a woman of her word. She hailed a cab on the corner of 5th and 60th, hair plastered to her face, freezing rain mixing with mascara running down her cheeks. The driver, a gruff man who had seen it all, eyed her in the rearview mirror. "Where to, lady?" Vivien looked back at the towering skyscraper piercing the clouds, the penthouse where Arthur was likely already pouring a scotch, toasting to his freedom. She touched the check in her pocket. $2 million. The price of her silence. The price of her erasure. JFK. Her voice found a sudden strength, steel-like, surprising even her. International terminal. One way. She wasn't going to Ohio. She wasn't going to be the sad, discarded ex-wife. Crying into a box of wine in a split-level suburb, Arthur Sterling thought he'd thrown away a piece of cheap glass. He had no idea. He just discarded a diamond. And he certainly didn't know. He just abandoned his heir. 5 years later, the gray concrete of New York was 1,000,000 miles away, replaced by rolling, sun-drenched hills in Tuscany. The light here was different, golden, thick, forgiving. On a sprawling vineyard estate just outside Florence, a woman walked the rows of Sangiovese grapes, inspecting the harvest with the eye of a general surveying a battlefield. A wide-brimmed hat, a simple white linen dress that cost more than Arthur's first car. But it wasn't the clothes that changed, it was the spine. This was not the hunched, fearful Vivien who used to apologize for taking up space. This was Viviana Rossi. She reclaimed her grandmother's maiden name. It felt heavy on her tongue. It felt like a weapon. Mama! Mama! The shout tore through the quiet hum of the cicadas. A boy came sprinting down the dirt path, dust kicking up, around little leather sandals. 4 years old, a mop of unruly dark curls, and eyes that stopped your heart cold. Piercing, electric blue. Arthur's eyes, Viviana crouched, caught the boy in her arms, and swung him around until he shrieked with laughter. "Leo, piano, amore mio," she laughed, kissing his dusty cheek. "What is the rush?" No, says the shipment is ready," Leo shouted. His English was perfect, but edged with a slight, musical Italian lilt. "And I helped. I counted the boxes. There are 42 cases, Mamma." 42. Viviana froze for a microsecond. Her smile went tight. 42. He was right. She'd checked the manifest an hour ago. "Good job, Leo." She brushed hair from his forehead. Leo was brilliant, terrifyingly so. He started reading at 2. By 3, he was doing multiplication tables for fun. He had his father's intellect, that sharp, predatory mind that saw patterns where others saw chaos. Every time he solved a puzzle, every time he looked at her, with those calculating blue eyes, she saw Arthur. But she made sure of one thing. He had the brain of a Sterling, but he had the heart of a Orochi. In the last 5 years, Vivien hadn't just survived, she had evolved. With the $2 million, she didn't play it safe. She played it smart. She remembered the nights in New York, serving coffee, while Arthur paced the living room, shouting into his phone about supply chains. He thought she was invisible. He thought she was just the wife. He didn't realize. She was listening. She knew which rare earth metals his new chips relied on. She knew the supply chain bottlenecks he was terrified of. So while Arthur was busy posing for magazine covers, Viviana moved quietly through the shadows. She bought the failing vineyard as a base. Then she used the profits to leverage aggressive positions in lithium mines in Australia and cobalt refineries in Brazil. She did it all through shell companies, hidden behind layers of corporate anonymity. The entity had a name, VR Holdings. Now, 5 years later, VR Holdings was a quiet giant in the global tech market, a supplier that Silicon Valley couldn't survive without. And nobody, absolutely nobody, connected the reclusive CEO, Viviana Rossi, to the starter wife of Arthur Sterling. As she walked back to the terracotta villa, hand in hand, with Leo, her phone buzzed against her hip. It was Marco, her personal assistant, and the only man on Earth who knew her full history. "Senora," Marco said. His voice was tight, vibrating with tension. "I'm walking with Leo, Marco. Can this wait?" "No. You have received an invitation." Viviana rolled her eyes. I receive many invitations, Marco. Decline it. Send a gift basket. You know I don't do social events. I'm a ghost, remember? This one I think you need to see, Marco insisted. It was hand-delivered by a courier from New York. It is for the Vanderbilt Charity Gala. Viviana stopped walking. Gravel crunched under her heels. The Vanderbilt Gala wasn't just a party. It was the Super Bowl of New York high society. It was where old money judged new money. Why on earth would they invite me? Her pulse quickened with each word. They didn't invite Viviana Roxy, the winemaker, Marco said slowly. They invited the CEO of VR Holdings. They want your sponsorship. But there is a note attached. Who sent it? It seems the gala is being hosted this year by Sterling Tech. The air left Viviana's lungs. Arthur, she hadn't seen his face in 5 years, except for the occasional magazine cover. She quickly burned. She knew, vaguely, he had married Serena 6 months after their divorce. She knew his company had gone public, making him a multi-billionaire. Read the note, Marco. Her voice dropped an octave. Marco hesitated. It says, to the mysterious head of VR Holdings. We would be honored to have your presence as we unveil the future of technology. We hear you control the resources we need. Let's make a deal. Signed, Arthur Sterling and Serena Sterling, co-chairs. Viviana looked down at Leo. He was chasing a yellow butterfly near the rose bushes. Laughing, unaware that the man who signed that note was the father he had never met. The father who would have treated him like an asset, not a son. Arthur didn't know who VR Holdings was. He didn't know he was inviting his ex-wife. He was walking blindly into a trap of his own making. Marco, Viviana spoke, and a cold smile touched her lips for the first time in years. Yes, senora? Tell the pilot to prep the jet. And Marco, call the tailor in Milan. I need a dress. A dress? Yes, she whispered, watching her son. Something red, something that looks like blood and war. She hung up. Arthur wanted to make a deal? Fine. She would give him a deal. She was going back to New York, not as the starter wife, as the woman who owned the ground he stood on. And she was bringing the one thing he couldn't control. The game was on. We left Viviana Rossi standing in the Tuscan sun, ordering a dress that screamed war, preparing to fly back into the lion's den. But this wasn't just about a party. This was about dropping a bomb on a man who thought he was untouchable. For 5 years, she had hidden Leo, built a fortress of silence around her son, protected him from the poison of the Sterling lifestyle, protected herself too. But lately, the silence from New York changed frequency. It wasn't the hum of success anymore. It was the static of distress. Vivien had been reading the Wall Street Journal. She saw the cracks before anyone else. Sterling Tech was stalling. Their innovation pipeline had dried up. They were desperate for a partnership with a raw material supplier to launch their new quantum phone, a device meant to save the company. They needed VR Holdings. Arthur needed her. He just didn't know it was her. A slow, dangerous smile spread across Vivien's face. Not joy, not relief. The smile of a predator realizing someone left the cage door unlocked. Marco, she spoke into the phone. Her voice dropped to a register. That meant business. Top, accept the invitation. On the other end, Marco hesitated. Senora, are you sure? It is in New York. The press, the paparazzi, they will be everywhere. Accept it, Vivien commanded, and call the atelier in Milan. Tell them to scrap the initial design. I don't want elegant. I want something that looks like an open wound. I want something they can't look away from. And for the boy? Marco asked gently. Vivien looked down at Leo, still chasing butterflies near the vines, sunlight catching those dark curls. A genetic copy of his father's. He was the spitting image of Arthur, but with a kindness in his soul. Arthur never possessed. The world didn't know. Arthur had a son. Arthur didn't know he had a son. It was time to rewrite history. Get him a tuxedo, Vivien said softly. Custom fit, Italian silk. He's coming with me. Senyorco gasped. If you bring him, everyone will know. There will be no going back. Exactly, Vivien said. She watched the sun dip below the Tuscan hills, turning the sky the color of a bruised peach. Arthur threw me out because I wasn't a power player. He wanted a trophy. Well, I'm going to show him exactly what he lost. And I'm going to show him. The one thing he can never, ever get back. She hung up. "Leo," she called out. The boy ran back, breathless, happy. "Yes, Mama? How would you like to go on a trip? To a big city called New York?" Leo's eyes widened, shimmering with that terrifyingly familiar intelligence. "Is that where Papa is?" Vivien froze. She had never lied to Leo, but she had painted, in broad strokes. She told him his father was a very busy man, a man who lived far away, building machines that changed the world. "Yes," Vivien said. She knelt in the dirt to look him in the eye. "That is where he is." "Will I meet him?" Leo asked, hope shining in innocent eyes, a hope that broke Vivien's heart a little. Vivien smoothed his collar. Her thumb brushed his pulse. "You will see him, Leo. But more importantly, he will see us." The stage was set. The starter wife was dead. The matriarch was coming home. While Vivien breathed the fresh rosemary-scented air of Tuscany, the air inside Sterling Tech headquarters in Manhattan was recycled, stale, thick, with panic. Arthur Sterling stood at the head of a massive glass conference table on the 80th floor. The view was spectacular. The Empire State Building looked like a toy from this height. But Arthur wasn't looking at the city he claimed to own. He was staring at a digital graph on the wall, bleeding red, the line trending sharply downward into catastrophe. "Explain this to me again, Marcus," Arthur growled. He pinched the bridge of his nose as a migraine began to throb behind his eyes. "And explain it like I'm a 5-year-old. Because apparently, that is the level of competence I'm dealing with today." Marcus Thorne, the CFO of Sterling Tech, a man who survived 3 heart attacks and 2 SEC investigations, wiped a bead of sweat from his bald head. His hands were shaking as he adjusted his glasses. "It's the supply chain, Arthur. We have the designs for the quantum phone. The tech is revolutionary. The prototype works. But without the high-grade lithium-6 and the specific cobalt alloy for the battery stabilizers, we can't manufacture at scale. We have 0 inventory." "Then buy more," Arthur snapped. "We have billions in capital. Throw money at it." "We can't," Marcus whispered. "The mines in the Congo are tied up in international legal battles. The Chinese markets just closed their export quotas to US tech firms. The global supply has evaporated. Then find another supplier." Arthur slammed his hand on the table. The heavy glass vibrated. "I am Arthur Sterling. I don't beg for batteries, Marcus. I build the future." We have found one," Marcus said. His voice trembled. "There is one entity remaining, a European conglomerate called VR Holdings. They cornered the market on these specific alloys. That's 3 years ago. It's almost like they knew the shortage was coming. They bought everything." Arthur narrowed his eyes. "VR Holdings? I've never heard of them. Who's the CEO?" "That's the thing," Marcus said. He shuffled papers nervously. "Nobody knows. They operate out of Italy. Very private, very exclusive. They use proxies for everything. They don't take meetings. But," Arthur prompted. He could smell the word. But the CEO accepted our invitation. To the Vanderbilt Gala tonight." Marcus leaned in, a desperate glimmer of hope in his eyes. "The RSVP came in 10 minutes ago." "This is our chance, Arthur. You have to charm them. You have to get them in a room." Arthur straightened his tie. The predator reawakened in his eyes. He didn't care who this CEO was. Everyone had a price. Everyone had an ego he could stroke or a weakness he could exploit. "If we don't close a deal with VR Holdings within the week," Marcus warned, "the quantum phone launch fails. If the launch fails, the stock tanks. If the stock tanks, the board will trigger the no confidence clause. You'll lose the majority share. You'll lose everything." Arthur walked to the window. He looked at his reflection. He looked tired, but he looked determined. "I won't lose," Arthur said quietly. "I never lose." He stared out at the city, thinking he was the shark in the water. He had no idea he was just the bait, Sal, and the real predator was already on a private jet crossing the Atlantic with a 4-year-old boy and a grudge about to burn his world to ash. "Get the car," Arthur said. "Let's go meet this mystery CEO." We left Arthur Sterling in his glass tower, convinced he was the predator about to devour a new acquisition. But as he looked down at the city, he didn't realize the ground was already shifting beneath his feet. The woman he destroyed, Wadi Rat, was on her way back, and she wasn't bringing a peace offering. She was bringing a wrecking ball. Arthur felt a cold prickle of sweat trace its way down his spine. Losing control of Sterling Tech wasn't just a business failure, it was an existential nightmare. The company was the only thing he actually loved, his child, his legacy, his identity. Without it, he was just another rich guy in a tuxedo. Fine, Arthur muttered to the empty room. He straightened his silk tie in the window's reflection. I'll charm them. I'll offer them whatever they want. Money, equity, a seat on the board. I'll give them the moon if I have to. He walked back to his private office, footsteps echoing on marble. He needed a drink. He poured a glass of Maca Allen 18, a scotch that cost more per ounce than most people earned in a week. Then he checked his phone. 5 missed calls from Serena. He groaned, guttural, exhausted. He texted her back, in a meeting. See you at home. He drained the glass. The burn grounded him. Then he looked at the framed photo on his desk, him and Serena on their yacht in Saint-Tropez. They looked perfect, beautiful, tanned, obscenely rich. But the reality was rot. Serena wasn't a partner. She was an expensive pet. In the last year alone, she torched $4 million on consulting fees for a fashion line that never launched. She leaked stories to the press constantly just to keep her name trending. And worst of all, she was boring. Arthur found himself missing the nights he used to spend with Vivien, who made him grilled cheese sandwiches at 2 a.m. while he coded the first Sterling algorithm. Vivien, who listened to him rant about recursive loops and asked insightful questions. Vivien, who never asked for a diamond, only for his time. Stop it, he whispered to himself. He slammed the glass down. She was a librarian. She was small. You are a titan. He left the office and took his private helicopter to the Hamptons estate to pick up his trophy wife. When he arrived, the house was a war zone. Stylists ran around with garment bags like medics on a battlefield. A makeup artist looked on the verge of a nervous breakdown. No, 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 Serena screamed, hurling a diamond earring across the room. It hit an antique mirror. The glass cracked. I said the emeralds, you idiot! The sapphires clash with my eyes. Serena Vance Sterling stood in the center of the room, wrapped in a silk robe. She was undeniably beautiful, a masterpiece of genetics and cosmetic surgery. But her face was twisted into a mask of pure ugly rage. Serena, Arthur said. His voice dropped dangerously low. We have to leave in 30 minutes. Look at this, Serena shrieked. She pointed a manicured finger at her trembling stylist. She's trying to sabotage me. The press is going to be there, Arthur. Vogue is covering it. I have to look perfect. You look fine, Arthur said, dismissive. Listen to me. Tonight is not about your dress. It is about business. The CEO of VR Holdings will be there. He walked up to her and gripped her shoulders. I need you to be charming. I need you to be intelligent. Can you manage that? Serena scoffed. She pulled away to adjust his lapel. VR Holdings? Sounds boring. Can't you just buy them? I'm trying, Serena. That's the point. If I don't, we are in trouble. We, Serena laughed, a cruel, tinkling sound. You mean you are in trouble, darling? My trust fund is doing just fine. Arthur stared at her, and in that moment, the realization hit like a physical blow. He didn't just dislike his wife. He hated her. He remembered the day. He kicked Vivien out, the look of devastation in her eyes. She hadn't fought for money. She hadn't screamed about jewelry. She had just left with dignity. Walking into the rain, he shook his head, cleared the memory. Focus, Arthur. Save the company. Just don't drink too much, Arthur warned. His voice went cold. And don't insult anyone. This CEO holds my future in their hands. Serena rolled her eyes. Relax. I'm the Queen of New York. Everyone loves me. She turned back to the mirror and blew a kiss to her reflection. Arthur watched her, a strange, heavy sense of doom settling in his gut. He built his castle on a foundation of ruthlessness, and now the cracks were starting to show. He just didn't realize the wrecking ball was already on a plane descending toward JFK, holding the hand of a 4-year-old boy who looked exactly like him. The Metropolitan Museum of Art had been transformed into a fortress of light and luxury. The red carpet stretched up the iconic steps, flanked by walls of white roses and hundreds of screaming photographers. This was the Vanderbilt Gala. The theme, Gilded Age Renaissance. Limousines lined up for blocks down Fifth Avenue. The air crackled with camera flashes and the desperate shouts of the paparazzi. Over here, Rihanna! Look left, Elon, Arthur, Serena, together. Arthur and Serena stepped out of their black Rolls Royce. Serena switched it on. Immediately, the scowl vanished, replaced by a practiced, dazzling smile that didn't reach her eyes. She wore a gold dress that was barely there, encrusted with so many crystals. She practically blinded the cameras. Arthur stood beside her in a bespoke tuxedo, jaw set tight, eyes scanning the crowd. They walked up the stairs, stopping for the mandatory interviews. "Arthur!" a reporter from CNBC yelled. He shoved a microphone into Arthur's face. "Is it true Sterling Tech is launching the quantum phone next month?" "We are on schedule to revolutionize the world," Arthur lied smoothly. He flashed his billion-dollar smile. "Serena, who are you wearing?" "It's custom Versace, obviously," Serena chirped. She flipped her hair. "Inspired by gold, because that's the sterling standard." They reached the top of the stairs and entered the great hall, a sea of tuxedos and ball gowns. Champagne flowed like water. The elite of the world were here, politicians, movie stars, tycoons, but the buzz in the room wasn't about the quantum phone. It was about the mystery guest. The seating chart had been leaked earlier that day. Table 1, the head table, Arthur, Serena, the mayor, and 2 seats reserved for VR Holdings. "Who is it?" Serena whispered to Arthur as they took their seats. She scanned the room, impatient. "Everyone keeps asking me. It's annoying." "I told you." "I don't know," Arthur snapped. He checked his Patek Philippe watch. It was 8 p.m. The gala was starting. The seats were still empty. "Maybe they aren't coming," Serena sniffed. She picked at her napkin, rude. "Probably some fat old Italian man who doesn't even own a tuxedo." "We need them, Serena." "Shut up." Suddenly, the lights in the great hall dimmed. The orchestra stopped playing. A hush fell over the room, starting at the entrance, rippling forward like a wave, heads turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Arthur frowned. He turned in his chair to see what was happening. The massive brass doors at the top of the stairs swung open. And then, Arthur stopped breathing. Standing in the doorway, framed by the darkness of the New York night, was a woman in a blood-red dress. It clung to her curves like liquid fire. She was stunning. She was terrifying. And holding her hand was a small boy in a miniature tuxedo. For a second, Arthur didn't recognize her. His brain couldn't process the data. Then, she took a step forward into the light. Her eyes locked onto his across the room. Cold, hard, familiar. Vivien, Arthur's glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the floor. The sound echoed in the silence, but he didn't hear it. He was too busy staring at the ghost who just walked in to kill him. And then, he looked at the boy with dark curls, the boy with piercing blue eyes. His eyes. Arthur felt the blood drain from his face. The room started to spin. "Arthur?" Serena whispered. Her voice trembled. "Who is that?" Arthur couldn't speak. He couldn't move. He could only watch as his past walked down the stairs to burn his future to the ground. The noise in the great hall didn't taper off. It died, like someone pulled the plug on the universe. Arthur looked up, irritated by the sudden silence, and he followed the gaze of 600 stunned billionaires to the massive entrance doors. The crowd didn't just part, they recoiled. They stepped back in genuine shock, creating a wide, terrified path for the woman at the top of the marble stairs. She wore a gown the color of midnight, deep, shimmering, velvet black that seemed to absorb the light around it, strapless, architectural, structured to kill, hugging a figure curvaceous and commanding. A long train trailed behind her like a shadow, dark, heavy. Around her neck, a necklace of rare yellow diamonds, glittering like the eyes of a jungle cat, heavy enough to sink a ship, expensive enough to buy a country. Her hair, the mousy brown mess Arthur used to complain about, was gone. In its place, a cascade of rich, glossy chestnut waves, styled with old Hollywood precision. Her makeup was sharp, accentuating eyes that scanned the room with terrifying, predatory intelligence. But it wasn't just the woman. Holding her left hand was a small boy, dressed in a miniature black velvet tuxedo, matching his mother's gown perfectly. Dark curls neatly styled, he looked out at the sea of strangers, not with fear, but with wide-eyed, analytical curiosity. "Who is that?" someone whispered. The sound cut through silence. "Is that Isn't that Arthur's ex-wife? No, it can't be. She was plain. She was nobody. My God, look at the boy. Vivien didn't stop for the press. She didn't smile for the cameras. She descended the stairs with a slow, deliberate cadence, echoing like a metronome, counting down to an explosion. Click, click, click. Her heels struck marble, each step bringing her closer to table 1. Arthur Sterling felt his heart stop, literally. For a second, his brain refused to process the visual data. A glitch. Impossible. The woman he remembered was soft, quiet, apologetic, a woman who flinched when he raised his voice. This woman was a goddess of vengeance, carved from obsidian. She radiated power. The air around her seemed to vibrate with static electricity. And then he saw the child. Arthur's breath hitched in his throat. The boy had his nose, his chin, the exact same way of tilting his head to the side when processing new information. It was like looking into a time mirror. Serena, finally noticing the silence, looked up from her phone, annoyed. Who is that bit? The word died in her throat. Her jaw dropped. Vivien stopped, 3 feet from the table. The entire room was watching. A waiter, sensing the tension, froze with a tray of champagne, terrified to make a sound. Vivien looked at Arthur. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't throw a drink. Instead, she offered a small, cool smile that didn't reach her eyes. A smile more terrifying than a scream. "Hello, Arthur," she said. Her voice was lower than he remembered. Husky, rich, tinged with a sophisticated Italian accent she wore like armor. "I believe you've been trying to reach my office." Arthur stood up so fast, his legs knocked into his chair. It skidded backward. "Vivien? You are?" "I am Vivien Aroxi," she corrected. Smooth, precise. CEO of VR Holdings. The room gasped, a collective inhale sucking the remaining oxygen out of the great hall. "You," Arthur stammered. His mind raced to catch up. "You own the lithium supply. I own the lithium. I own the cobalt. I own the future of your company, Arthur." Her voice carried clear to the back of the room. She looked down at Leo, her hand tightened, protectively, on his shoulder. "And I also own the one thing you could never buy." Arthur looked at the boy. His brain was doing the math, and the numbers were terrifying. Who is this? Vivien's smile sharpened into a blade. "Leo. Say hello to Mr. Sterling." "Hello, Mr. Sterling," Leo said, polite, clear, hauntingly familiar. "Are you the man who makes the phones?" Arthur looked into the boy's eyes. His eyes, 5 years. The boy was 4. The timeline was undeniable. Arthur's knees went weak. He gripped the table to stay upright. "Vivien," Arthur whispered. He ignored Serena, who was now clawing at his arm, like a desperate cat. "Is he?" "We're late for the first course," Vivien interrupted, cutting him off before he could say the words. She pulled out a chair for Leo, settled him in, then sat down, directly opposite Arthur. She smoothed her black napkin over her lap with deliberate grace. "Shall we discuss business, Mr. Sterling?" She picked up a crystal glass of water. "Or are you going to keep staring at me like I'm a ghost?" "I thought you were in Ohio," Arthur managed. He sat back down, slowly. His eyes never left her face. "I have homes in many places," Vivien said, vague, careful. Then she finally glanced at Serena. Serena was trembling with rage and confusion. "Hello, Serena. Lovely dress. Gold is so predictable, don't you think?" Serena turned, a violent shade of purple. "Who do you think you are? You can't just waltz in here with some kid and ruin my night." "I didn't come to ruin your night, Serena," Vivien said. She took a sip of water. "I came to save your husband's company. Although, looking at the financials, it might be a mercy killing." The people at the nearby tables leaned in so far they were practically falling into their lobster bisque. This was better than Broadway, better than a takeover bid. The discarded wife returned as the kingmaker, and she brought the heir. Arthur couldn't take his eyes off Leo. The boy was buttering a bread roll with intense concentration, exactly how Arthur buttered his bread, methodical, precise, covering every corner. "We need to talk," Arthur said, urgent, low, privately. "We are talking," Vivien replied. "Cool. We have nothing to discuss privately. Anything you have to say, you can say in front of your board members." "And your wife?" Arthur hissed. He leaned over the table. The boy is mine?" "The boy is ROC," Vivien said. Her voice turned to steel. "He looks like a Sterling," Serena spat it out. The realization hit her like a slap. She looked from Arthur to Leo and back, eyes wide with horror. "Oh my God. You were pregnant. You left pregnant. I was thrown out," Vivien corrected. Her gaze snapped to Serena. "There is a difference. Does he know?" Arthur asked. His voice cracked. "Does he know who I am?" Vivien leaned forward, lowered her voice so only Arthur could hear. "He knows you are a busy man who makes phones. He knows you live in a big tower. But father? No. A father is someone who protects his family, Arthur. You are just a donor." Arthur flinched, like she struck him. He opened his mouth to argue, to demand, to claim his son. Then the lights in the hall flashed. The microphone on the stage screeched to life. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer boomed, "please welcome the keynote speaker for the evening, the CEO of Sterling Tech, Mr. Arthur Sterling." The spotlight hit table 1. It hit Arthur, pale, sweating. It hit Serena, looking like she was about to vomit. And it hit Vivien, sitting in black velvet armor, looking like the queen of the underworld. Arthur froze. He had to go up there. He had to give a speech about the future, but the future was staring him in the face. Buttering a bread roll. "Go on, Arthur," Vivien whispered. She gestured to the stage. "Go tell them how successful you are. Tell them about your legacy." Arthur stood up, legs heavy. He walked toward the stage, but he felt Vivien's eyes drilling into his back. He knew, with absolute certainty, that when he turned around, his life as he knew it would be over. He reached the podium. He gripped the sides to stop his hands from shaking. He looked out at the crowd, then down at table 1. Leo waved at him, a small, innocent wave, with a bread roll in his hand. And that's when Arthur realized the terrifying truth. He wasn't the CEO anymore. He was the hostage, and the ransom was sitting in seat 1A. We left Arthur Sterling standing at the podium, realizing he wasn't the CEO anymore. He was a hostage, and the woman holding the gun wasn't asking for money. She was asking for his soul. Arthur stumbled through his keynote speech. The words sounded hollow, robotic. He didn't look at the teleprompter. He looked at table 1. He watched Vivien sip her water. He watched the boy, Leo, meticulously dissect a bread roll. When he finally stepped off the stage, sweating through his custom tuxedo, he didn't go to the press line. He went straight back to the table. Vivien turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Now," she said, her voice dropped low, so nearby billionaires had to strain to hear. "About the lithium-6. The price has gone up, Arthur, considerably." "How much?" Arthur asked, dazed, like he was floating outside his own body. Vivien leaned forward. Candlelight danced on the yellow diamonds around her neck. They looked like cold fire. "Everything," she whispered. "I want a seat on the board. I want veto power on all new product launches. And I want a public apology." "For what?" Arthur blinked. "For underestimating me." The band struck up a waltz, but nobody moved to the dance floor. The real dance was happening at table 1, and Vivien was leading. She played the long game. She suffered in silence, eating bitterness, for 5 years. And now, she held the cards, the chips, and the house. Arthur looked at his empire, a glittering room full of sycophants. Then he looked at his wife, Serena, scrolling furiously on her phone, ignoring the disaster. Then he looked at his son. Leo looked back, blue eyes, sharp, assessing. Arthur felt a sickening thud in his chest. He was about to lose everything he thought he controlled. And the terrified part of him realized something else. He didn't care about the board seat. He wanted to know the boy. "I accept," Arthur said, hoarse. "Arthur?" Serena shrieked. She slammed her phone down. "You can't be serious. You're giving her the company?" "I accept the negotiation terms," Arthur said. He ignored his wife completely. He looked Vivien dead in the eye. "But I have a condition." Vivien raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "You are hardly in a position to make demands, Arthur." "I want to get to know him," Arthur said. He pointed a shaking finger at Leo. Vivien laughed, dark, rich, the sound of a judge delivering a guilty verdict. "That," she said softly, "is not for sale." The morning after the Vanderbilt Gala, the headlines weren't about the quantum phone or the stock market. They were about the woman in black and the boy with the blue eyes. "The return of the Queen," screamed the New York Post. "Who is the heir?" asked the Times. Arthur Sterling sat in his office on the 80th floor, the blinds drawn tight against the harsh morning sun. On his desk, a legal summons. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of Leo burned into his retinas. "We have options, Arthur," said Lucas Vance. He paced the room. Lucas was Arthur's attorney. And unfortunately, Serena's uncle, a pit bull in a three-piece suit, known for destroying anyone who tried to touch the sterling fortune. "She abandoned the marriage," Lucas said. He ticked points off on his fingers. "She hid a child. This is parental alienation. We can sue for full custody. We can paint her as unstable. We can say she fled the jurisdiction." Arthur rubbed his temples. The migraine from last night returned with a vengeance. "She didn't abandon the marriage, Lucas. I threw her out. And if we go to court, that will come out." "It doesn't matter," Lucas said. He waved a hand, dismissive. "You're Arthur Sterling. She's nobody. She's a winemaker. She's not a nobody," Arthur snapped. He slammed his hand on the desk. "She's the supplier. If I sue her, she cuts the supply chain. The company dies. The quantum phone dies. I lose everything." Lucas stopped pacing. His eyes narrowed. "Then we play dirty. We prove the boy isn't yours. We demand a DNA test. If it's negative, she's a fraud, and we destroy her credibility. If it's positive, we have rights." Arthur looked at the photo of him and Serena on his desk. He looked at the empty scotch glass. "Do it," Arthur said. His voice went cold. "Get the test. Today." 2 hours later, a convoy of black SUVs pulled up to the penthouse Vivien was renting at the Mandarin Oriental. Vivien was eating breakfast with Leo, waffles with extra strawberries. When the doorbell rang, she didn't flinch. She didn't panic. She knew they were coming. She'd been waiting for this move. "Marco," she said calmly, "take Leo into the bedroom. Put on Bluey." She waited until the bedroom door clicked shut. Then she opened the front door. Arthur stood there, flanked by Lucas Vance and a court-appointed nurse holding a medical kit. "Good morning, Arthur," Vivien said. She leaned against the doorframe. Still wearing silk pajamas, she looked fresh, rested, completely unbothered. "You look tired." "We're here for a DNA sample," Lucas barked. He held up a court order. "We need to verify the paternity of the minor child." "Immediately," Vivien laughed, softly. She stepped aside. "Come in. I expected this yesterday. Honestly, you're slipping, Arthur." She led them into the living room, offered them nothing, not a seat, not a glass of water. The nurse set up her equipment on the coffee table. Vivien called for Leo. When the boy walked out holding a stuffed bear, Arthur felt that same punch in the gut. The recognition was visceral. The boy looked at Arthur with suspicion, then shrank back against his mother's leg. "It's okay, Tesoro," Vivien soothed. She stroked his hair. "This lady just needs to touch your cheek with a cotton swab. It won't hurt. It's like a little tickle." Leo climbed onto Vivien's lap. The nurse did the swab. Quick. Then she swabbed Arthur. The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. "Results in 24 hours, the nurse said. She packed up her kit efficiently. "Now that that's done," Lucas said. He stepped forward, puffed out his chest. "My client demands visitation rights immediately." "Denied," Vivien said. "Cool." She poured herself a cup of coffee from the silver service on the table. "You can't deny him," Lucas blustered. His face turned red. "He is the father." "The test results aren't back yet," Vivien reminded him. She took a sip. "Legally, he is a stranger. And even once the results are back, you'll find that Arthur signed away his rights to any future claims on my assets in our divorce settlement." Lucas scoffed. "Assets? We're talking about a child, not a car." "Or did you forget the clause you added, Lucas?" Vivien's eyes glittered over the rim of her cup. "The one to protect his stock options. Any and all future acquisitions, biological or material, post-separation, are the sole property of the individual party." Lucas turned pale. The blood drained from his face. He remembered the clause. He wrote it himself. To ensure Vivien couldn't claim any new patents or companies. Arthur built after she left. He never thought it would apply to a human being. "That won't hold up in family court," Lucas argued. But his voice was weak. "Maybe not," Vivien smiled. She set her cup down. "But while we fight it out in court for 3 years, VR Holdings will suspend all shipments of lithium-6 to Sterling Tech. Immediately." She stood up, walked over to Arthur, stopped inches from his face. "How long can the company survive without batteries, Arthur? A month? 2? Arthur stared at her. at the woman he discarded, the woman he called a starter wife. And he realized, too late, she wasn't just playing the game. She designed the board, she wrote the rules, and she already won. "Checkmate," Vivien whispered. We left Arthur Sterling standing in the middle of his ex-wife's living room, realizing he'd just been checkmated. He wasn't the billionaire titan anymore. He was a man with a dying phone battery begging for a charger. "What do you want, Vivien?" Arthur asked. His voice sounded hollow, defeated. Really, Vivien didn't blink. "I told you last night. I want the board seat. I want the public apology. And I want you to leave us alone." "I can't," Arthur admitted. His gaze drifted involuntarily to the closed bedroom door where Leo was hiding. "He's my son, Viv. I have a legacy to leave. I can't just pretend he doesn't exist." "You have a legacy," Vivien said. Her voice dropped to a whisper that cut deeper than a scream. "But you don't have a family. You chose Serena. Live with it." Arthur looked at the bedroom door one last time, yearning to knock, to see the boy again. But he knew he'd lost that right 5 years ago. He turned and walked out, Lucas scrambling to keep up like a kicked puppy. When the door clicked shut, Vivien's hand shook slightly as she set down her coffee cup. It was a bluff. She would never actually cut off the lithium supply permanently. That would tank the stock. And Sterling Tech was Leo's inheritance too. She wasn't going to burn down her son's future just to spite his father. But Arthur didn't know that. Fear was her greatest weapon. And right now, Arthur was terrified. The DNA test came back 24 hours later. 99.99% match. There was no denying it. Leo was a Sterling. The news leaked instantly, likely from a nurse who just paid off her mortgage. Sterling Tech stock jumped 15% in pre-market trading, just on the rumor that an heir had been found. The market loved stability, and an heir meant longevity. The board of directors was ecstatic. They pressured Arthur to bring Vivien into the fold immediately. But while Wall Street cheered, the Sterling estate in the Hamptons was imploding. Serena Vance was unraveling. She paced her walk-in closet, kicking piles of designer clothes, her face a mask of panicked rage. "He's going to leave me," she screamed into her phone. "Daddy, you have to do something. He's obsessed with the brat. He has a photo of the kid on his lock screen. He's looking at nursery designs for the penthouse. He hasn't looked at me in 3 days." On the other end was Conrad Vance, the shipping magnate, a man who crushed unions and rivals for sport. "Calm down, Serena," Conrad said. His voice was cold, steady. "Arthur can't leave you. The prenup we signed would cost him half the company if he files for divorce. He's trapped. He doesn't care about the money anymore." Serena sobbed. "He wants the boy." "Then we need to damage the woman," Conrad said. "If she looks unfit, Arthur gets full custody, and the woman goes away." Serena froze. "If Arthur gets the kid, you become the mother," Conrad finished. "You raise the heir. You control the legacy, and Vivien goes back to being a footnote." Serena stopped pacing. She looked at herself in the mirror. She wiped away her mascara. A slow, wicked smile formed on her lips. "I become the mother," she whispered. "Exactly." "But first," Conrad said, "we need to destroy Vivien Rossi." 2 days later, the smear campaign began, and it was nuclear. It started on social media. Bots began flooding Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with stories about Vivien. Source: Vivien Rossi had a secret affair with an Italian mobster. Source: Vivien Cole stole money from Sterling Tech before she fled the country. Source: is Leo really Arthur's, or is this a long con for child support? Then came the kill shot, the interview. Serena sat down with a primetime tabloid TV show. She wore soft pastels, minimal makeup. She looked tragic. "I just feel so betrayed," Serena told the host. She wiped away a fake tear with a practiced motion. "Arthur and I have been trying to have a family for years. It's been so hard. And this woman, she hid his child. She kept a father from his son just to spite us. It's cruel." The host nodded sympathetically. "And now? Now she's using that poor boy to blackmail the company," Serena sniffed. "She's demanding millions. It's extortion. We just want to love Leo. We just want to bring him home." Public opinion began to sway. People loved a victim, and Serena played the role of the grieving, barren wife perfectly. Arthur watched the interview from his office. His face turned a deep, dangerous shade of red. He knew it was a lie. Vivien hadn't asked for a dime. She had more liquid cash than he did, right now. He called Serena. "What the hell are you doing?" Arthur roared. "I'm defending our family, Arthur." Serena snapped back. Her voice lost the fragile tremor she used on TV. "Someone has to. You're too busy staring at baby photos. You're making things worse. She controls the supply chain." "Not for long," Serena said. Smug. "Daddy is calling in favors. Vance Shipping Lines is blocking her containers at the ports in New Jersey. We're going to starve her out. She'll come crawling to us, begging for a deal." Arthur slammed the phone down. He felt like he was watching a car crash in slow motion, and he was stuck in the passenger seat. But Vivien didn't panic. Vivien didn't get mad. Vivien got even. She watched the interview from her hotel suite at the Mando Rin Oriental. She sipped an espresso while Marco paced nervously behind her. "Senora," Marco said. He checked his tablet. "They are blocking our containers. The Vance Shipping Lines are refusing to dock our ships. The lithium is stuck in the harbor. We are losing $1 million a day in delay fees." "Let them," Vivien said calmly. She opened her laptop. "Senora?" "Serena made one mistake," Vivien said. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. "She assumed I was playing by the rules of high society. She thinks this is a gossip war." "And what is it?" Marco asked. "This is a data war," Vivien said. Her eyes went cold. "I'm releasing the audit." During her years building VR Holdings, Vivien learned something simple. Information was more valuable than gold. And when she decided to return to New York, she didn't just bring a dress. She hired a team of forensic accountants and private investigators to look into everyone: Arthur, the board, and especially the Vance family. She opened a file labeled Project Glasshouse. "Serena Vance wants to talk about hidden secrets," Vivien whispered. "Fine. Let's talk about the offshore accounts. Let's talk about the tax evasion. Let's talk about the bribes her father paid to bypass customs inspections for years." She hit send. The email didn't go to Arthur. It didn't go to Serena. It went to the IRS, the SEC, and the New York Times investigative desk at the same time. Vivien closed her laptop. "Marco," she said, "order some room service. I think we're going to have a celebration tonight." "What are we celebrating?" "The end of the Vance dynasty," Vivien said. "Serena wanted to be famous. I just made her the most famous woman in America. But not for the reasons she thinks." Outside, the sun was setting over Central Park, but a storm was about to break. A storm that would wash the Vances into the sewer. We left Vivien in her hotel suite, hovering over the enter key like an executioner, ready to drop a nuke on the Vance dynasty. Serena thought this was a gossip war. She thought she could win, with tearful interviews and blocked shipping containers. She was wrong. This wasn't gossip. This was a forensic autopsy. During her years building VR Holdings, Vivien hired a team of private investigators to tear apart the lives of everyone who wronged her. And when they looked into Serena Vance, they didn't just find dirt, they found a graveyard. Serena hadn't just been burning money on clothes and failed fashion lines. She had a gambling addiction. Massive. A 7-figure hole dug in underground VIP rooms from Atlantic City to Macau. But the debt wasn't the crime. The crime was how she paid it off. Serena had been stealing prototype schematics from Arthur's home office, selling them to a rival tech firm in South Korea. Vivien took a sip of her espresso. "Goodbye, Serena." She hit send. The dossier went to 3 inboxes at the same time. The head of the SEC, the entire board of directors of Sterling Tech, and Arthur Sterling. In his penthouse office, Arthur's phone pinged a single email notification. Subject: The Leak. From V. Roke C. He opened it. He started reading. His eyes widened. His breath hitched in his throat. He clicked on the attachments. Photos. Serena meeting executives from their biggest competitor in a hotel lobby in SoOHL. Wire transfer receipts from a shell company in the Cayman Islands directly into Serena's private account. Timestamps of when files were copied from his home server. Dates that matched the nights. Serena claimed she was shopping late. Serena wasn't just annoying. She wasn't just a trophy. She was a corporate spy. Arthur felt something wash over him. Not anger, not heartbreak. Relief. Pure, unadulterated relief. This was his out. He stood up, grabbed the printed dossier and walked out of his office. He marched straight into the boardroom, where the emergency crisis meeting was underway about the blocked shipments. "Gentlemen," Arthur announced. His voice boomed. He threw the heavy file onto the mahogany table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped in front of the chairman. "The shipments will clear tomorrow, and I am filing for divorce." "On what grounds?" The chairman blinked, bewildered. "The prenup with the Vances is ironclad." "There is no prenup for treason," Arthur said. "Cold. Serena Vance has been selling our IP. She is the reason our stock dipped last year. She is the leak." The room erupted. Phones grabbed. Lawyers shouted for. Chaos everywhere. But Arthur didn't stay to watch the fire burn. He walked to the window. He looked out at the city. He had been blind, chasing the shiny, golden object and throwing away the real treasure. He let a spy into his bed while he kicked the only loyal person in his life out into the rain. He took out his phone. He dialed a number he hadn't dialed in 5 years. "Hello?" Vivien answered on the second ring. "You win," Arthur said. He leaned his forehead against the cool glass. "Serena is gone. Security is escorting her out of the estate as we speak. I'm pressing charges. The path is clear." "The path to what?" Vivien asked. "Guarded." "To us," Arthur said, desperation leaking into his tone. "To being a family." Silence. Long. Heavy. "Then Arthur," Vivien finally said, not triumphant, tired. "You still don't get it. There is no us. I exposed Serena to save my son's inheritance, not to save your marriage. I don't want you back." "Then what do you want?" Arthur pleaded. "I can change, Viv. I can be the father he needs." "Prove it," Vivien said. "Not with money, not with lawyers. Show me you are a father, not a CEO." "How?" "Leo has a recital at his preschool tomorrow at 10 a.m. It's the Very Hungry Caterpillar. He's playing the caterpillar." Arthur blinked. "A recital? Tomorrow?" "Yes. I have a meeting with the Japanese investors at 10 a.m. The merger deal." "Then don't come," Vivien said. "Simple. But if you miss this, Arthur, don't ever ask to see him again." The line went dead. Arthur looked at his calendar. 10 a.m. Strategic alliance meeting. Mandatory. He looked at the empty chair in the corner where Serena used to sit, complaining about jewelry while he worked. He looked at the dossier of betrayal on the table. He pressed the intercom button. "Margaret." "Yes, Mr. Sterling." "Cancel the Japanese investors." "Sir?" Margaret's voice squeaked. "That deal is worth $3 billion. We've been working on it for 6 months." "Cancel it," Arthur said. His voice shook, but it held. "I have a prior engagement. I have to go see a caterpillar." The auditorium of St. Jude's Preschool in Brooklyn smelled faintly of floor wax, graham crackers, and nervous sweat. A far cry from the sandalwood-scented boardroom of Sterling Tech, and infinitely farther from the champagne-soaked air of the Vanderbilt Gala. Arthur Sterling stood at the back of the room. He wore a $5,000 bespoke suit, but he felt naked, out of place. He checked his Patek Philippe watch. 10:02 a.m. He was late. He had never been late to a board meeting in his life. Yet here he was, breathless, heart hammering against his ribs, scanning a sea of parents, holding up iPhones and iPads. "Excuse me," he whispered. He squeezed past a father holding a toddler on his shoulders. "Sorry." "Excuse me." He spotted her in the third row. Vivien. She wasn't wearing black velvet today. No avenging queen. She wore a soft cream sweater and jeans. Hair pulled back in a loose ponytail. She looked softer. She looked happy. Her phone was up, recording the stage. On stage, a group of 4-year-olds in cardboard costumes stumbled around, and there in the center, wearing a green segmented suit made of felt, looking absolutely terrified, was Leo. He stared out into the audience, searching. His little face crumpled with anxiety. He was looking for his mom, but he was also looking for someone else. Arthur felt a lump form in his throat, golf ball sized. He raised his hand high above the crowd and waved. Leo saw him. The boy's face transformed. Fear vanished, replaced by a blinding, gap-toothed smile. He pointed a chubby green finger right at Arthur. "Papa!" Leo shouted, breaking character completely. Papa came. The entire audience turned to look. Vivien turned too. She saw Arthur standing there, sweating in his suit, ignoring the billion-dollar phone buzzing in his pocket. She didn't smile, but for the first time in 5 years, the ice in her eyes began to thaw. Arthur Sterling had just made the most expensive deal of his life, and as he watched his son that wiggle across the stage, he knew it was the only one that mattered. But the war wasn't over, because while Arthur watched a play in Brooklyn, Serena Vance sat in the back of a black sedan. She wiped away her tears. She dialed a number even her father was afraid to call. "It's me," Serena whispered. "Plan B. Burn it all down." We left Serena Vance in the back of that black sedan, whispering, "Burn it all down." She was lighting a match, hoping to turn Arthur's world into ash. But while Serena plotted destruction, Arthur was in a preschool auditorium in Brooklyn, watching a miracle unfold on a painted bedsheet. The curtain was pulled back. A dozen 4-year-olds shuffled onto the stage, dressed as apples, pears, strawberries, and there, in the center, inside a green sleeping bag, modified with pipe cleaners, was Leo, the very hungry caterpillar. Arthur felt that lump again, golf ball sized. It was ridiculous. He'd negotiated billion-dollar mergers without blinking. He'd fired 1,000 people in a single afternoon. But watching his son wiggle across the stage to eat a cardboard pickle, it broke him. Leo recited his line, voice high, clear. But he was still hungry. Parents laughed, clapped. Leo beamed, soaking in the applause. He looked for Vivien and waved frantically. Then his blue eyes scanned the back of the room, searching the shadows. Arthur held his breath. He stepped out from the doorway. He raised a hand. Leo saw him. The boy's face didn't light up with full recognition. Not yet. He didn't know this man well enough. But he looked surprised. Then he smiled, shy, tentative. For the first time in a decade, Arthur Sterling didn't think about stock prices. He didn't think about margins or market share. He thought about how small that wave was. He had missed. After the show, the playground turned chaotic, sugar-high children, chatting parents. Vivien helped Leo out of his green felt costume when Arthur approached. "You came," Vivien said. She didn't look up. She fought a stubborn knot in the fabric, but her voice wasn't cold anymore, neutral, cautious. "I canceled the Japanese deal," Arthur said. It sounded like a brag. He regretted it immediately. He winced. "I mean, I wanted to be here. I needed to be here." Leo looked up at Arthur, curls messy from the costume hood. "Did you see me eat the pickle?" Arthur ignored the dirt. He knelt right down in the wood chips, ruining the knees of his $5,000 suit trousers. "I did, Leo. You were the best caterpillar I've ever seen. Oscar-worthy. Mama says you make phones." Leo reached out. He poked Arthur's silk tie with a sticky finger. "I do," Arthur said softly, "but I think caterpillars are cooler." Vivien watched, arms crossed tight against her chest, her expression unreadable, protective, and something softer. "Memory, maybe." "Go play with Heavy Sam, Leo," Vivien said gently. "I need to talk to your father." Leo ran off toward the slide. The word father hung between them. Heavy. Strange. "Don't expect a medal, Arthur," Vivien said. She turned to him. "You showed up to one play. That's the bare minimum." "I know," Arthur said. He stood up, brushed mulch off his knees. "I know I messed up, Viv. With Serena, I was blind." "You were greedy," Vivien corrected. "Sharp. And you were insecure. You thought you needed a supermodel on your arm to prove you were a big shot. You didn't realize. Real power comes from loyalty, not aesthetics." "I want to fix it," Arthur said. He reached into his jacket pocket. "I spoke to my lawyers this morning. I'm dropping the custody suit. I'm giving you full physical custody. I'll take whatever visitation you allow. Weekends, holidays, whatever you say." He pulled out a folded document and held it out to her. "And I'm stepping down as CEO of Sterling Tech." Vivien's eyes widened. This she didn't expect. Arthur loved that chair more than life itself. It was his throne. "Why?" she asked. "Because the board is in shambles after the Serena scandal," Arthur admitted. His voice went low. "The stock is tanking again. The investors don't trust me. They think I'm easily manipulated. And they're right." He pressed the paper into her hand. "I'm recommending you as the interim CEO. You know the supply chain better than anyone. You have the raw materials. You have the business acumen. You built VR Holdings from nothing. You're the only one who can stop the bleeding." Vivien looked down. Resignation letter. Recommendation for succession. Then she looked at Arthur. "You're giving me your company." "It's the only way to save it," Arthur said. "And it's the only way to ensure Leo has something to inherit." I'll stay on as chief technical officer. I'll just code. It's what I was good at before the money ruined me. Vivien looked at the man she once loved. He looked broken, humbled, but for the first time in years, he looked real. She tore the paper in half. Rip. Arthur gaped. What are you doing? I don't want your charity, Arthur, Vivien said. She dropped the pieces into a nearby trash can. And I don't want to be CEO of Sterling Tech. I have my own company. I like my vineyard. I like my life. But the company will collapse, Arthur argued. Panic rose in his voice. Without strong leadership, the vultures will pick it apart. No, it won't, Vivien said. She stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Because there is one thing you still don't know. What? 5 years ago, Vivien said. She held his gaze. When you were starting up, right before the IPO, you had a liquidity crisis. You couldn't make payroll. Remember? Arthur nodded. Slow. Yes. An anonymous angel investor came in with $5 million at the last second. Well, saved us from bankruptcy. Vivien smiled. Small. Secret. That wasn't an angel, Arthur. That was my grandmother's inheritance. I liquidated her entire estate to save you. I didn't tell you, because I didn't want you to feel indebted to your plain wife. Arthur stared at her, his mouth opened and closed like a fish. The realization hit like a freight train. You? He whispered. You were the investor? I was, Vivien said. Which means, Arthur, under the terms of that original convertible note, I already own 15% of Sterling Tech. She leaned in closer. I don't need you to give me the company. I've owned a piece of it since day one. And now, I'm calling in my marker. Arthur looked at her with a mix of awe and terror. He thought he was the master of the universe. But the whole time, the woman making grilled cheese was holding the deed to the castle. So what happens now? Arthur asked. Now, Vivien checked her watch. Now we go to lunch, because your son wants pizza. And after that, we prepare for war. War? You didn't think Serena would just go away quietly, did you? Vivien looked toward the parking lot. Her eyes narrowed. She's a Vance. They don't retreat. They retaliate. As if on cue, Arthur's phone buzzed. A news alert. Breaking. Conrad Vance accuses Sterling Tech of industrial espionage. Federal raid. Imminent. Vivien looked at the screen, then at Arthur. Ready to get back to work. CTO? No. Arthur buttoned his jacket. For the first time in years, he wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for the woman beside him and the boy on the slide. Lead the way, boss, he said. We left Arthur Sterling standing in the wood chips of a Brooklyn playground. Jaw on the floor, he had just offered to hand over his company to save it, only to learn Vivien, the woman he discarded, the starter wife, had secretly funded his survival 5 years ago. I've been your partner this whole time, Vivien said. Quiet. But it hit him like a freight train. The realization shattered Arthur. She hadn't just returned to save him now. She saved him then. She had always been the strong one. He was the one who'd been carried. The arrogance that defined him for a decade, the myth of the self-made man, evaporated, leaving him standing there as just a man in a dirty suit. He fell silent. No arguments left, no power plays. So, Vivien said. She checked her watch. Here is the deal. Arthur looked up, listening like an intern receiving orders. You remain CEO, Vivien commanded. You clean up the mess with Serena. You apologize to the public. You cooperate with the feds, and you stabilize the stock. You're good at that. And the boy? Arthur asked. His voice cracked. Every Friday, Vivien said. She stepped closer. You fly to Italy, or wherever we are, and you spend the weekend being a dad. No nannies, no assistants, no phones. Just you and Leo. You learn how to make pasta. You learn how to handle a tantrum. You earn your place. Arthur nodded, slow, digesting the terms of his surrender. And us, he asked, a sliver of desperate hope in his voice. Is there a chance for us? Vivien looked at him. She reached out and straightened his tie, a familiar gesture, intimate. It made Arthur's heart ache with phantom pain. I loved the man who fixed computers in a garage, she said softly. I don't know the man in the $5,000 suit. You killed him, Arthur. She pulled her hand back. You have to earn the right to be known by me again. And it's going to take a long, long time. She turned away, breaking the spell. She put 2 fingers to her lips and whistled. Leo, gelato time! Leo came running from the slide, face smeared with dirt and joy, his green caterpillar costume flapping in the wind. He stopped. He looked between his mother and the tall stranger. "You coming, Mr. Phone Man?" Leo asked. He tilted his head. Arthur looked at Vivien. He waited. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Arthur smiled, a genuine smile, unguarded, reaching his eyes. For the first time in years, he loosened his silk tie. He took off his bespoke Italian jacket and tossed it over his shoulder, not caring if it wrinkled. "Yes," Arthur said. He crouched down and took his son's small, sticky hand. "I'm coming. And call me Papa." They walked out of the playground gate and onto the Brooklyn street, the queen of industry, the fallen king, and the hungry caterpillar. The paparazzi were waiting. The news of the secret heir had leaked. Flashbulbs erupted like a strobe light storm. But for the first time in his career, Arthur Sterling didn't pose. He didn't smile for the cameras. He scooped Leo into his arms, shielded the boy's face from the glare, and walked one step behind his wife, happy to finally be in second place. The starter wife finished the game, and she won everything, from being discarded in the rain on Fifth Avenue to holding the keys to the empire. Vivien proved something. The best revenge isn't just success, it's owning your worth. Arthur learned the hard way. You can buy a company, but you can't buy loyalty, and you certainly can't buy the love of a child. Vivien didn't just take back her dignity, she rewrote the rules. True power is quiet, patient, unbreakable. It makes you wonder how many people in your life are being underestimated just because they stay silent. So I have to ask, do you think Vivien should have given Arthur a chance? Or did he get off too easy? Leave your verdict in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma, redemption, and sweet justice, hit that like button. It helps the channel grow. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. I'll see you in the next one.